After watching the shows, I hope that you can have a better understanding about the mascots of the Hangzhou Asian Games. I wonder how many students will notice the mark on the top right corner of our program, the one that looks like the sun. Well, the corner mark is the symbol of the Olympic Council of Asia. Having received praise from the OCA, the Road to Hangzhou 2022 owns the authorization mark, which represents the Olympic Council of Asia. Besides, the program is the one and only program that is authorized to have bilingual items for the Hangzhou Asian Games. Now, speaking of the artists who designed the Hangzhou Asian Games mascots, Mr. Zhang and Mrs. Zhang, they were the first guests we interviewed. They are a couple. When we first met them, Zhang Wen didn't immediately speak about the experience of designing the mascot. Instead, he shared some of his childhood memories with me. Some details in the conversation left a deep impression such that I still can recall them now. Well, Zhang Wen's hometown is Yongjia in Wenzhou. According to Zhang, what Yongjia conveys to others is a typical view of the south of the lower reaches of the Yangtze River, where once lots of men of literature and writing worked and expressed their feelings and thoughts towards the view there. Nanxi River in Yongjia and the hometown ancestral halls and villages were the places he used to play. From Zhang's perspective, he uses magic to describe the changes of this hometown. While his hometown remains full of cultural heritage, it is also changing a lot with the development of our country. Therefore, in the video, you can see some vintage courtyards and houses, as well as some mansions and tall buildings. However, no matter how fast it changes, Zhang comes up with a very good point, a point that I'm going to say next. Well, I so agree with the point shared by Mr. Zhang, which is root culture. Zhang is a person who loves his hometown so much. He told me that wherever he goes, he will never say anything bad about his hometown. It is the best in his heart. Just like what has been mentioned in the video, the years have changed. Our hometowns will change significantly as well. Nevertheless, what is rooted in the culture is there. It is always there. So when we went to Zhang Wen's hometown to shoot, the first place he took us to was the ancestral hall, which held a lot of memories for him. So there were many celebrations and sacrifices held in the ancestral hall, where an activity was held there, such as operas and drumming performances. Zhang Wen would quietly watch and observe their costumes, movements, and expressions. Combined with many historical murals inside the ancestral hall, the traditional culture of his hometown influenced him in his paintings. Character modeling, music, and costumes at an early age. Therefore, Zhang Wen's design of the mascots was also based on these respects. It took some time to shoot this video in the ancestral hall, for a flood of memories struck Mr. Zhang as soon as he arrived here. Well, besides, the shooting took place in the summer, so as a result, the air in the ancestral hall is so boiling hot, and our shooting crew is sweat a lot. Well, later, Zhang Wen took us to his family tree, which was also very astonishing. When you see such a thick family tree book, you will feel like you are carrying on a dialogue across time, as if all the ancestors were stood in front of you, telling a little bit of their experience in that era. In the meantime, you will notice the transmission of culture and family, and a sense of home pride will spring up. Hence, Mr. Zhang spontaneously remarked in the interview as follows: he will never defame his hometown wherever he goes. In his view, the hometown is the best. As he mentions in the video, the hometown will greatly change with the time going by, but the roots of the culture will always be there. Well, in the subsequent design of the mascots, Mr. and Mrs. Zhang also focused on the roots of culture to design the mascots. As a result, you may find that the three mascots are fully integrated with the most typical and relevant elements of Hangzhou. The wood element, the three World Heritage Sites of Hangzhou. In fact, the topic of shooting the mascots can be easily operated. We can just invite Mr. and Mrs. Zhang Wen to the studio for an interview, add the mascot elements they designed, and clearly tell the audience the design inspiration for the mascot. That's easy. However, we were also deeply touched by Mr. and Mrs. Zhang Wen's persistent spirit of culture exploration and their confidence in culture. It was also a good starting point for us to publicize Chinese culture. The mascot was named Memories of Jiangnan. It comes from Bai Juyi's poem called Dreaming of the South. Bai Juyi is a famous poet from the Tang Dynasty. At sunrise, the riverside blossoms redder than fire. In spring, green waves grow as blue as sapphire, which I can't help but admire, and Hangzhou is the most memorable city in the south. Mr. Zhang Wen likes this poem very much because his hometown, like Hangzhou, is surrounded by mountains and rivers. On the Nanxi River in Yongjia, Mr. Zhang Wen said that in the usual design, the landscape culture of Nanxi River will give him a lot of inspiration. Another meaning of the mascot design he wants to express are the feelings of the ancient Chinese literati, reverence for the landscape. Well, during this shooting, Zhang Wen always took his child with him. The child's name is Ashi. Zhang Wen told us that Ashi had loved nature and small animals since childhood. In the film, we photographed a real scene. In the ancient village, Zhang Wen and his wife took Ashi, and just after shooting a scene, Ashi saw a kitten and squatted there and talked with the kitten for more than an hour. Well, Zhang Wen and his wife also patiently accompanied the child. That was a very touching and a cozy scene. Well, on the weekdays, Zhang Wen always takes his child for outings in many places in Hangzhou. They often go to places such as West Lake, Xixi Wetland, Liangzhu, and the Grand Canal. Zhang Wen said that the process of brewing and creating mascots is very similar to Ashi's birth process. From the conception to the final draft, it took almost 10 months. The couple joked that they had 3 children again. When he mentioned the child, Zhang Wen's expression was full of tenderness. Wife Yang Yihong said that the couple repeatedly pondered over the action and expressions of their daughter Ashi and took them as the inspiration to transform them into the expressions and dynamics of the mascot. So we can intuitively feel from the animation's vision of the mascots that the 3 mascots are full of a child's lively and innocent feeling. Well, the shooting of the mascot series is the beginning of our approach to the Asian Games. Well, in this shooting process, the biggest difficulty that our crew needed to overcome was the multi-point trip and also scorching weather. The whole shooting process took a full month from the planning in the preliminary stage to the final production of the film. The shooting took us to many places in Hangzhou, Yongjia, and so forth. In order to capture the scenes of the ancient village, we also went to Lunyao town in Yuhang district. So there were up to nearly 20 locations for all the filming spots. 90% of the natural scenery in the film was shot by the film crew in real time. So when you are watching this series, you will feel that the spaces are very large. We wanted to better tell the story and concepts behind the mascot designs. Well, due to the situation of the high temperature, the day was about 37 to 38 degrees. So basically, it didn't take long for all our clothes to get wet when we were shooting outdoors. In order to not let the sweat affect our guest's image, Mr. Zhang Wen and I were wearing black clothes. There were always large droplets of sweat on Mr. Zhang Wen's face after being interviewed for a few minutes. So therefore, our colleagues would help Mr. Zhang wipe his sweat after we have to had a break during the shooting. Well, in the interview that we took on the Nanxi River, Mr. Zhang's face was already flushed by the sun. So although we used software to make some adjustments to the skin tone during the post-production stage, we could still feel the heat through the lens. At the end of the shooting, we playfully asked Mr. Zhang whether he would consider retaking the shots again or not. His response was totally out of our expectations. He said, "Let it break in all its fury." Well, we really appreciate Mr. Zhang's cooperation. Later, when the series was out, Mr. Zhang was also very excited. He also designed a logo for our program. You can see the logo from the road to Hangzhou 2022. Butterfly represents the Jiangnan elements. The reason for this appearance of the ribbon elements over here is that I like wearing qipao when I'm hosting, so as we can see in the video of the meeting in the Turkmenistan. When our Hangzhou delegation bid for the 2022 Asian Games, I was also wearing qipao on the stage, so I think Mr. Zhang was inspired by this video. After the series on the birth of the Hangzhou Asian Games mascots broadcast, it was highly praised by the public. Our program was awarded the OCA logo and was also streamed on the official OCA website, as well as broadcast globally through the OCA official and overseas new media accounts. Well, for the other broadcast platforms mentioned above, our students can find them all on our The Road to Hangzhou 2022 WeChat official account. Well, after completing the programs on the mascot, we came across two more major selections about Hangzhou Asian Games, namely the color system and core graphics of the Hangzhou Asian Games. Well, the core graphics and the color system of the Hangzhou Asian Games was unveiled on October the 21st, 2020. Well, these elements, as one of the basic elements of the Asian Games visual image system, are used together with the emblem, mascot, theme slogan, sports icon, and other visual signs to shape the overall atmosphere and aesthetic tone of the Hangzhou Asian Games. So first of all, let's talk about the color system of the Hangzhou Asian Games. Zhejiang is home to a large number of poems and paintings. As its capital city, Hangzhou plays an integral part in the cultural legacy of Tang poetry. It was Suchu's poem that inspired the color system, harmony of colors. For the Asian Games, the Westlake looks like the forelady at her best, whether she is richly adorned, clothed, or plainly dressed. Through the refinement and concentration of Chinese color culture and Hangzhou's characteristics, the Hangzhou Asian Games has formed a color system based on rainbow purple, complemented by glowing red, Mr. White, laurel yellow, glimmering blue, and lake and mountain green, each color corresponding to a poem describing Hangzhou, containing the natural ecology of lush lakes and mountains, as well as the innovative and dynamic passion of sports. So next, please watch the film Through watching, we will interpret the aesthetic culture of the Asian Games and find out the colors of Hangzhou. Hello and welcome to the Road to Hangzhou 2022. I'm Yongxin Celia Chen. I bring you our build-up to the Hangzhou Asian Games with interviews, highlights and interesting stories of the sporting actions, all that is coming up very soon. On 21st of October 2020, the core graphics and the color system of the 19th Asian Games, Hangzhou 2022, were unveiled. The core graphics, Meeting the World, designed by Professor Chong Zhaohui and her team, depicts New dwelling in a future mountain in Oriental poetic sense, while the color system with each color and poem inspired by the landscape of Hangzhou and ancient poetry was designed by a team led by Ge Jingyong. Both designers are from the China Academy of Art. So in this episode, let's take a first look at the color aesthetics of the Asian Games.
Hangzhou has a history of more than 2,200 years. Many stories and legends have been passed on in the city as a result of Hangzhou's profound culture. Among them, the most remarkable ones are the West Lake, the Grand Canal and the ancient civilization of Liangzhu, which made the nation proud. They witnessed Hangzhou's rapid development. People living here have changed the city.
I'm Yongxin Celia Chen. I'm the English bidding presenter of the 19th Asian Games, Hangzhou 2022, and the English host of HCRT. Born in Hangzhou and raised in London, England, with an education in both China and the West, I came back to Hangzhou with a dream. I hope to introduce Hangzhou to a broad world stage. I will use Hangzhou Asian Games as an opportunity to showcase China's charm to the world, to share the city's civilization, technology and future. Today I will introduce you to the aesthetics of the Hangzhou Asian Games. The flame of the Asian Games has been passed on to Hangzhou, and the Hangzhou Asian Games is gradually showing its unique colors.
中国的颜色啊是混色的，杭州的颜色又是什么呢？杭州亚运会的颜色又是什么呢？如果说50年前的杭州是黑白色的，那么现在的杭州应该是多彩多面的，它既有传统色彩，又有新城色彩，还有科技色彩。那么亚运会的色彩又是什么呢？我想它应该是多彩多面的。
会徽和亚运体育图标是杭州市亚运会视觉形象的重要元素之一，色彩、核心图形组织在一起，为亚运会的宣传、亚运会的顺利进行起到了至关重要的作用。而亚运会是杭州面向世界舞台的一个重要的窗口，一定要赋予杭州最负盛名的东西。
The ancient Silk Road has also brought more Chinese culture to the world.
On the ancient stage of the traditional Chinese Yue opera, the ballad of Butterfly Lovers bid farewell in 80 miles, performed by Huanglong Yue Opera Troupe. The smiles and the gestures of the actors and the call of the voices at the scene linger in the mind of Ge Jingyong, the designer of the color system for Hangzhou Asian Games.
杭州是一个历史悠久的城市，它具有中国江南典型的意味，它有着独特的山水之美、人文之美和东方意境之美。杭州也是一个充满活力的城市，在这里发生了一个个勇立潮头、敢为人先的创新创业的故事。在时代的年轮中， 每个城市都会留下属于它的记忆和色彩。淡妆浓抹是我对杭州最初的印象，也是最深的印象。
Your design was inspired by the poem of Su Shi in the Song Dynasty. The West Lake looks like the fair lady at her best, whether she is richly adorned or plainly dressed. You aim to express the distinctive and dynamic characters of the city of Hangzhou through the Chinese color culture. So I'm just wondering, what is the rainbow purple exactly?
色彩是非常独特的视觉语言，它是感性的，可以讲故事，就像诗歌一样。杭州是诗画浙江的省会，也是唐诗之路非常重要的起点，所以诗歌就成为我们这次创作的重要的源泉。这次杭州亚运会的主色调红晕紫，就出自我们的杭州老市长白居易的《忆江南》。日出江花红胜火，春来江水绿如蓝。红与蓝交汇而出的紫色，象征着交融和欢聚。而映玉红、月桂黄、湖山绿、水光蓝为辅助色，水墨白为点缀色。这样，杭州亚运会的色彩系统既可以描绘出杭州的湖山苍翠，又可以描绘出创新活力的新时代杭城华彩画卷。
The rest of the world's early impressions of China centered on the heir to the dragon and Chinese kung fu.
"5,000 years on, Chinese culture has developed its diversification, and the city of Hangzhou alone has many colors."
水墨白是杭州亚运会色彩系统的间色，也是杭州自然和人文的底色。它源自北宋诗人柳永的《望海潮》。
The 6 colors of the Asian Games color system are a refinement of Chinese color culture and Hangzhou features. Each color is carefully chosen, and each corresponds to a poem about Hangzhou.
The Asian Games color system designer Mr. Guo Junyong is a typical new Hangzhounese who represents hundreds of thousands of Hangzhou newcomers. His love for Hangzhou is strong and passionate. Thus, he uses color to depict the Hangzhou in his eyes.
从未来色彩整体应用的角度，我们会对每一个色彩进行大量的实验，以保证在不同的媒介上它呈现出统一的效果，而且这个效果是跟整个的亚运色彩体系相协调的。底色就是渐变的话，烧出来也是渐变的吗？
对，像它这种把釉料混在一起，然后同时筛完之后一遍烧成的。
我们对不同的介质、材料、工艺进行了大量的实验，包括电子媒介。
That's the Olympic Sports Center. Is it rainbow purple as well?
是的，我们这次的色彩呢都是渐变色，跟我们接下来的色彩的应用是结合在一块儿的。我们提倡夜经济嘛，城市和运动会是结合在一块儿的话，夜景观的塑造是非常重要的。所以我们这次提出的色彩的概念也是光色融合，以彩虹和韵律命名的红晕紫，象征着日月交辉、时代风采。传递出昂扬奋进的时代精神，也是塑造杭州亚运会视觉形象的重要基础。就如同我身后的灯光秀一样，所以欢迎大家一起来探索杭州亚运会的诗画渊源。
With the release of the core graphics and color system for the Hangzhou Asian Games, the beauty of meeting the world and harmony of colors will be widely applied to a variety of scenarios, including venue decoration, ceremonies, cultural activities, vehicles, uniforms, tickets, and licensed products.
The visual system of the 19th Asian Games Hangzhou 2022 uses its exquisite visual images, distinctive features, and profound cultural and historical connotations to enhance the Asian Games vibe across the city, and also to spread the Asian Games culture and aesthetics, and also to influence the hearts of every participant, advancer, and fighter of the Hangzhou Asian Games. Okay, that's about it from us for this week, but join us the same time in next 2 weeks for more Asian Games fun. Good day.